Hello and welcome to episode 078 of the Bit Beacon broadcast. It's March 31st, 2025. You can call me Kodax, and I am your host through this week's episode. I'm going to start off by talking about a recent purchase that has showed up. Not going to have a whole lot to say about it, but this is the new Atelier game, Atelier Yumiya. The subtitle is The Alchemist of Memories and the Envisioned Land. This is the first in a new sub-series of the Atelier series. Typically, they do 3 games for each sort of protagonist that gets added to the game or area that gets added to the game. I guess it's not always the same protagonist, but a lot of times the protagonist from the previous game will show up in the next game. The previous sub-series, the Ryza series, had the same protagonist through all 3. This remains to be seen whether this protagonist will continue through the next couple of games or not, but I'd put money down that they will be back for the next game. Koei Tecmo, the publisher, and developer Gust announced that in less than 2 weeks, I think, the game has already sold 300,000 copies, which is the fastest the series has ever gotten to that mark before. So exciting to see this once very niche series kind of grow to new heights. As for what I have been playing, this past week I've kind of been in a funk. Genshin Impact had a big new update drop with a new area to explore, and I'm usually really gung-ho and excited about that when Genshin Impact drops a new explorable zone in their big wide open world. But this week, I don't know, I was just really struggling to get into it. It wasn't until last night actually that I spent a couple hours with it, and then I was sort of starting to feel myself again there. So I think I'm turned around on it, but I don't know why. I was just sort of feeling down on playing Genshin Impact this week. I haven't had much time to get the sleeping dogs. I spent some time this past week, this weekend actually, at WonderCon in Anaheim. It's the sister convention to San Diego Comic-Con, run by the same group, Comic-Con International. And not a whole lot of gaming stuff to report, but there was one thing semi-gaming related, and that would be the Until Dawn movie. So Until Dawn was originally a PlayStation 4 game that released back in, maybe 2014 or 2015, somewhere around there. And it was a horror game set in like kind of a remote area, and you got to... it's a horror game that was a horror movie. It had a lot of quick time events, so you're kind of walking around environments and you can screw up and get things right, and then characters will get killed or they'll survive. And the game just sort of has this crazy branching path with multiple different endings depending on who lived and who survived, that kind of a thing. And it proved to be a smash hit. It was developed by Supermassive Games. Last year, PlayStation released a sort of remastered version of Until Dawn, made by another studio. And this year, a movie is coming out based on the franchise. And they had a panel and a small booth on the show floor. On the show floor, they were giving away theatrical-size posters for the movie. And then the panel itself had the director, I believe the screenwriter, a bunch of the cast, and then one of the main movie producer people from PlayStation, whose name is escaping me right now. But I brought my poster to the panel, and after the panel ended, I was able to get director David F. Sandberg to sign my poster, which was pretty cool. The cast was actually signing a lot of people's stuff as well, but it was kind of a big mess after I got the director, so I was like, you know what, he's the main guy I wanted, so I'm just going to bounce out of there. But yeah, it was a pretty cool panel. They did talk a little bit about, their experiencing filming the movie. I think they said they were somewhere in the South or something like that. It's a pretty young cast. They all look like they're 20-some years old. I hadn't ever heard of any of them, but I understand that one of them is on some Hulu or Disney Plus show or something called Love, Victor, the main character from that, he's in the movie. So if you watch that, I don't know, maybe that excites you. But yeah, the cast seemed pretty cool. Seemed like they all got along. They had some fun stories. But David F. Sandberg, for those of you that don't know, he recently directed both the Shazam movies starring Zachary Levi. He's from Sweden, I guess, originally, and he's known for doing horror films before he got into Shazam. So he seemed pretty excited to be back to doing kind of a smaller horror film, which Until Dawn definitely kind of gives that vibe. The movie itself looks interesting because they're not recreating the game, which is cool. They're actually expanding the sort of lore of Until Dawn. There's one character from the games who will appear in the movies. So if you played the game, the older gentleman in the game, oh gosh, his name is escaping me. They told this hilarious story about how he really loves Hello Kitty. He's like the 60-year-old dude that is obsessed with Hello Kitty, and he goes everywhere with his Hello Kitty backpack and shirt and sweater and stuff. He was on Prison Break. Why can't I think of his name? Darn it. Peter Stormare. That's his name. Peter Stormare. He has a very unique voice. You definitely would recognize it if you heard it. So yeah, that was funny to hear about Peter Stormare. But yeah, WonderCon, was kind of a bust gaming-wise this year, but that's okay. I didn't spend too much of my own personal time there this year. Only a couple hours each day. So I had a good time for the time that I was there. Alright, so in a couple days, maybe by the time you're hearing this, if you hear this the day I release it, which should be April 1st, the next day is the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. And if you're listening to this on Wednesday, well then, you've probably already heard the news. But I will be breaking down this week's Nintendo Switch Direct, next week's episode, on episode 078, I think it is. Excuse me, next week's episode is 079. This is 078, of course. So look forward to that, please. I mean, it's probably going to be the only thing I talk about in next week's episode, unless there's other periphery news about the Nintendo Switch 2, which there probably will be surrounding it. Yeah, expect a big blowout next week. And then in episode 80, I'll be talking about my hands-on time with the Nintendo Switch 2 after I attend the Nintendo Switch 2 Experience event in Los Angeles. So, as I've been teasing, that is all coming very soon. But what are we going to talk about this week? I've got 3 pretty cool things that I'm excited about. It's all good news this week, no bad news, and I'm going to start it with like a really great story, or something I'm really excited about. So last summer, Game Informer was unceremoniously shut down by its parent organization, GameStop. We all thought it was over, but behind the scenes, something was happening. This past week, Game Informer sprung back to life. The website came back online with dozens of new reviews from games that had arrived over the past 6 months since Game Informer closed. The entirety of the team at Game Informer at the time of its closure has all agreed to return to the publication. How did this happen? Game Informer editor-in-chief Matt Miller explains that Gunzilla Games secured the rights to the brand from GameStop. Who the heck is Gunzilla Games? That's what I asked myself when I read the news. Turns out that Gunzilla Games is a developer based in Frankfurt, Germany, working on a battle royale game, Off the Grid, with an NFT marketplace built into the game. Gunzilla is co-founded by South African filmmaker Neil Blomkamp, the guy behind movies such as District 9, Elysium, and the recently released Gran Turismo, well, a couple years ago now. It's an odd combination, to be sure. Game Informer was never even available in Europe, so I'm not sure how Gunzilla developed such an affinity for the publication. Not to mention, most games with NFTs haven't exactly lit the world on fire, with many of these games closing or never even coming out of a beta or alpha. I'm a little concerned about the long-term outlook for Game Informer, with their parent company being Gunzilla, but I'm glad to have them back, and I'm thankful to Gunzilla for that, so, I'm not going to complain too much. That being said, is there maybe a conflict of interest in having a game developer own Game Informer? Wouldn't that create some pressure on the team to give an inflated review score to their game once it leaves early access? Editor-in-chief Matt Miller had the following to say about their relationship with Gunzilla moving forward. Our team was thrilled to hear from the folks at Gunzilla Games about their interest in working with us. They share our belief that the legacy of Game Informer is worth preserving. We can't wait to continue our mission to celebrate games and the people who play them. We're extremely grateful to Gunzilla Games for their confidence and trust in bringing back 100% of the team and ensuring our coverage remains entirely editorially selected and created. So it sounds like they will have the independence to cover what they want to cover and not take orders directly from Gunzilla. That's great news. Meanwhile, Vlad Korolov, CEO and co-founder of Gunzilla, had this to say about bringing Game Informer aboard the Gunzilla Games team. "We are proud to welcome the talented voices behind Game Informer in the Gunzilla Games family, and join their fight to preserve the heart of video games journalism in what has been a tumultuous time for the industry. Its legacy spans over 33 years. The publication has had a dedicated readership since its inception and still holds a special place in the hearts of many players across multiple generations, including us." So those are some nice words. There's really not a lot of money to be made in journalism these days, so to go out of their way to bring Game Informer back does speak to their character. I give them the kudos they deserve for that. But what about the magazine? Will there even be a magazine, or is this just a digital outlet going forward? Matt Miller says the following about this topic. "We wanted to get the site back up and running for all of you as soon as we could, but there's a lot more on the way in the coming weeks, including the return of Game Informer's print magazine. Our intent is to bring back the magazine bigger and better than it was before, and add a host of membership and subscription benefits. If you'd like to be among the first to know about our new membership and subscription options, you can support us at this stage simply by creating a new Game Informer account, where we can reach you with those details as they're finalized in the coming weeks. Registering and knowing of your interest at this stage means so much and helps us plan for what's next." So this is interesting. They're explicitly differentiating between memberships and subscriptions. It seems likely that there will be a basic magazine subscription, but maybe also a greater membership that grants you access to the team and benefits on the digital side of things. When I was briefly subscribed to GameStop or Game Informer this past year, when they relaunched their sort of subscription, one thing that annoyed me was how the magazines arrived unprotected, meaning there was no plastic wrap on it, so the magazine would get banged up when being fed through all the crazy machinery that the United States Postal Service uses to sort the mail. So I really hope, if there is a subscription membership, it either includes a bag, or if I got to pay an extra couple bucks a month to make sure I get that bag, I would be willing to do that. But otherwise, I don't know that I'm necessarily in for Game Informer Premium or anything like that. I don't need to join the special Discord or anything like that. But I know some people do like that kind of access, do like getting to, pick the editor's brains and things like that. So maybe that's the route they go. Maybe they have a Patreon on the side, or they do something like that to generate more income for the team and keep the outlet stable moving forward. Whatever it takes, I'm all for it. So I suspect its new owners being in Germany means that the magazine will also probably be available outside of the US for the first time. That should also help with expanding its audience and hopefully give it a new lease on life moving forward. When the magazine launches, I'll be sure to let you guys know how you can sign up and what the pricing tiers and all that kind of thing are. This past week, Nintendo dropped a bomb on us. Less than a week before the hotly anticipated Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Direct, Nintendo made the shocking announcement that there would be an additional Nintendo Direct 6 days before the one that we're anticipating this week. So this Direct was announced on March 26th and aired just a day later on March 27th. The Direct was focused entirely on Nintendo Switch games, with no game announcements for Nintendo Switch 2. Never has there ever been two Nintendo Directs in such close proximity to each other. Nintendo fans are feasting these last 2 weeks. So the Direct was over 30 minutes in length and featured something for everybody. I won't cover everything here, but I'll quickly highlight some of the games I'm particularly excited by that were announced. So the Direct opened up with our first look at Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake. Following up on their promise to flesh out these very bare-bones games from the 80s with new story elements, we got our first look at that with the addition of a new party member being added to Dragon Quest 2. It appears to be one of the NPCs in the games, the Princess of Connaught, I'm not totally sure how to pronounce that town's name, who was originally, like I said, only just a background NPC, related to one of the other party members, but just more of a minor character in the background. So the fact that they're adding her into the party member, as a party member, that speaks to some of the cool stuff that they're going to be doing with the game. I do wonder what kind of archetype they'll give her character, because in the main game you had sort of this, you had the main player protagonist character who's sort of a hybrid warrior magic user, and then you have sort of a fighter type, and then you have a straight healer type. So with a fourth party member, I do wonder what kind of vocation they're going to give them. And it seems like it's going to add some fun to the party as well, based on this the princess's demeanor as shown in the trailer, which is good because it's a very serious game, Dragon Quest II. Like, the story is like super grim. So the fact that, we're going to have someone maybe a little more lighthearted in there will bring some levity to the game's story. It remains to be seen if any other major changes will be coming to the first Dragon Quest game, Dragon Quest I, as it was much shorter and only features a single party member. So Dragon Quest 1 and 2 released sometime in 2025. Atlas debuted a remaster of one of their classic Devil Summoner games originally on PS2, with an updated title, Raito Remastered: The Mystery of the Soulless Army. The Devil Summoner games are a sub-series of the Shin Megami Tensei series, something Ravenheart's a really big fan of. Though interestingly, they seem to be dropping the Devil Summoner title from this remake. Rather than a turn-based combat, this game features real-time combat where you battle alongside your demon companions. The Shin Megami Tensei series has always been a bit daunting for me. Every time I've ever tried one, I've gotten my butt handed to me. So I've always been, I don't know, man. They're just, like, you need a pen and paper to play those games. You gotta, like, note the monster down and, like, figure out what they're weak to. And, because, man, you make one small mistake and, like, the equivalent of, like, a Pidgey or a Rattata will just, like, destroy your team, to put it in Pokemon terms. So, so maybe this real-time combat might open itself up to it being more accessible to me. So I'm excited to give this game a shot. The game will be released soon, on June 19th, a little more than 2.5 months from now. So 2 PlayStation game IPs were announced at the Nintendo Direct, which is really kind of crazy. There have been comments from PlayStation execs over the last year about better utilizing some of their more legacy IP, and we saw it earlier this year with the release of Freedom Wars Remastered. And now we've got 2 more titles to talk about, both of which are coming to us courtesy of an arrangement between Bandai Namco and Sony. First up is Patapon 1+2 Replay. Remastered versions of the classic Japan Studio PSP games. These games were made available on PS4 via an emulated version a few years ago, but Patapon 1 and 2 Replay will actually be native ports of the games, with some additional quality of life features to make the experience better for fans and newcomers alike, as players battle to the beat. Patapon 1+2 Replay launches July 11th, also coming soon. There appears to be a physical version of the Switch copy of the game, but not the PS5 copy, and it remains to be seen if the physical version will release here in the States or if it's just a Europe and Japan only title physically. The second game in this partnership is a brand new entry in the Everybody's Golf series, titled Everybody's Golf Hot Shots. This series has traditionally been developed by the studio Clap Hands, but Bandai Namco is publishing the game, and they've decided to take the development to a different developer, Studio Hyde, who previously worked with Bandai Namco on the game Digimon Survive. Part of me is quite disappointed to see that Clap Hands is not involved. After Japan Studio shut down, Clap Hands started making their own golf games because they no longer had access to the Everybody's Golf IP, but I'm sure that they would have loved to jump on the chance to work on the series again. Who knows though, maybe Bandai Namco reached out to Clap Hands, but they were busy with their own personal projects and not able to take the job. I'm willing to give Studio Hyde a chance though, and hope they put out something truly great and deserving of the series' name. The game is slated for release sometime in 2025. Our next title is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. It got its first proper trailer after last year's teaser at the Summer Nintendo Direct. In this new trailer, we got a first look at Samus's new psychic abilities, which will allow her to manipulate objects and control her various attacks like never before. It shows her like shooting one of her, like almost like a missile, but it's like a psychic missile, so you actually go into like a guided sort of missile mode where you're able to control the projectile that Samus shoots out and like use it to hit multiple enemies at once that are in totally different places in the room. I also see that something like that really being used in the puzzle solving that's present in the games. So I think there's a lot of potential there. The trailer itself, though, was just okay. It had some annoying narration on top of the footage. It would have just been better if they let the footage speak for itself. The music, though, was absolutely sublime in classic Prime fashion. While we don't have confirmation, it certainly sounds like Kenji Yamamoto is back in the composer's chair. Metroid Prime 4 is slated for release sometime in 2025. The last two announcements from the Direct I'll talk about today are kind of the out-of-left-field variety and a little bit zany, both of which are Nintendo intellectual properties. First up, we've got Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream. This is the third entry in the Tomodachi Life series and the second entry released outside of Japan. For those of you unaware, Tomodachi Life heavily utilizes your Nintendo Mii characters. You essentially plop a bunch of Miis you created. You, your friends, your family, maybe some characters from TV shows you like, or even real-life personalities and celebrities, and you drop them into this island or this town, and you just kind of watch them all start to interact with each other. It's kind of like The Sims meets Animal Crossing, but in a more lighthearted and less hands-on. I mean, you definitely have hands-on of your own personal Mii character, but what the other characters do is just kind of totally random, and all kinds of things will happen. The Miis will develop friendships, and sometimes even romantic relationships. The games have these surreal moments and situations that play out, and honestly, it's really funny and entertaining. I'm so glad to see the series return after being absent for nearly a decade. This is easily the game that I am most excited about that they announced. That was like a brand new announcement at least. So Tomodachi Life Living the Dream releases in 2026. That means we're getting Nintendo Switch games, or Nintendo Switch 1, well into next year. The last game is a new entry in the Rhythm Heaven series, Rhythm Heaven Groove. The games are somewhat similar to WarioWare, where you play a bunch of micro games in quick succession, except the games in Rhythm Heaven are, well, rhythm games. These games pack a lot of personality, great little tunes, funny movements, and charming visuals. The game is being co-developed with TNX Music Recordings and also releases in 2022. Sorry, 2022, what the heck? 2026, I don't know where my mind is. So what's cool about these two titles is that they are very, evergreen. Anybody can play them, not just hardcore gamers. So it makes sense that they're releasing them at the end of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, where they'll be playable on both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, but they want to make sure that these games can get into the most hands as possible. And by releasing them as being Nintendo Switch 1 games, there's 150 million people that own a Nintendo Switch. So that means all those people will be able to get to play those titles, as well as people who buy into the Nintendo Switch 2, with the backwards compatibility that we know is happening. So Nintendo unveiled a couple of non-related gaming announcements, but I'm just going to talk about one of them today, and maybe next week I'll have time to talk about the other one. But Nintendo unveiled yet another smartphone application titled Nintendo Today, with an exclamation mark at the end. Nintendo Today is Nintendo's attempt at a personalized Nintendo news and content sharing app. But only they get to share content. Users don't get to share any content. So upon setup of the app, users are prompted to select a theme from titles like Super Mario, Pikmin, Animal Crossing, Zelda, and a couple others. There's a daily calendar functionality that marks important date information for game announcements, as well as releases, Nintendo Directs, that kind of thing. And an animation plays upon boot up each day that's related to the month, as well as the month, day, and the theme of the app that you chose when you first started it up. The app became available shortly after the Nintendo Direct aired, and the very next day, the app lived up to its promise of exclusive Nintendo news with a big scoop, which leads us to our final news topic of the episode. Nintendo announced through the Nintendo Today app, don't forget the exclamation mark, that the official release date for the live-action Legend of Zelda movie is March 26th, 2027. That's honestly sooner than I anticipated. I was fully expecting this to be in development hell for years, but a March 2027 release means that this movie will have to start filming this year. The day after the news broke on Nintendo Today, the following comment was published on X, formerly Twitter, from The Legend of Zelda's very own creator, Shigeru Miyamoto. Miyamoto said, "This is Miyamoto. Did you have a chance to check out the short video we posted on Nintendo Today a few hours ago?" He just so you all know, he did not forget the exclamation mark. "We announced that the live-action film of The Legend of Zelda, which I am producing with Avi Arad-san, will be released in theaters worldwide on March 26, 2027. On the Nintendo Today app, we will be delivering a variety of information, such as this announcement, directly to all of you. We hope you will try it out. So that's really less of a comment on the movie and more of a, hey, please come over to our app and stop using Twitter. I have a feeling they're like, I don't know, maybe with everything going on with Twitter, they just want, to start setting up an alternative where they can get news out to people through this application. So according to Variety, director Wes Ball is still attached to direct the film and is still co-financed with Sony Pictures and Nintendo, with Nintendo paying for the majority of the film's production. Movie industry insider Daniel Rickman reports that the film will be the first of a trilogy set to release over 6 years beginning in 2027, with filming commencing in New Zealand this November on the first film. Not sure how substantiated these rumors could be, but a trilogy makes sense, especially with Wes Ball attached, who directed the Maze Runner trilogy of films. He's, a good fit for something like this. Daniel Rickman has a decent track record with his scoops, but he does often get things wrong, so it's anybody's guess if this is actually legit. We will certainly learn more about the film later this year, since it's going to start filming this year, it has to. Likely in a Nintendo Direct, where we will get our first look at the cast, maybe even some test shots of them and their costumes, and a look at some sets. I'm hoping they don't try to recreate any one particular game as a movie. Zelda games are mostly standalone, so just do a standalone game that can be its own canon entry into the series lore. That's really the way to do the movie. So this movie has the potential to be absolutely incredible. I mean, imagine like The Legend of Zelda but Lord of the Rings. Like, oh man, that would be so cool. But it also has the potential to be an incredible piece of garbage. If it's the latter, hopefully it's at least so bad that it becomes funny. End transmission.